When was the last time you quietly gave yourself credit for believing? I don't mean credit for being righteous. I don't mean credit for earning anything. I mean credit for the small act of believing. The one thing in the whole transaction you were sure was yours. I want to ask that one again. Because there's a verse most of us carry in our back pocket. By grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, so that no one can boast. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. And the grammar underneath it does not leave you the one thing you thought it did. Paul is in prison in Rome, early 60s AD. He's writing into this mixed church at Ephesus, Jewish believers who grew up inside Torah, Gentile converts who came out of the Artemis cult and the patron-client honor system of the city. Both sides are quietly re-importing a performance framework. Both sides are looking for the additional thing which certifies they are really in. And Paul drops two verses that, in English, sound like a catechism line. In Greek, they are doing something more surgical. The sentence reads, "For by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God." Read it again and let the ear catch the seam. And this is not from yourselves. There's a detail in the Greek I had walked past for a long time. The word Paul uses for this, the pronoun pointing back to what he just said, is touto. It's neuter. Neuter singular. Greek genders its nouns. Pistis, faith, is feminine. Charis, grace, is feminine. Both of them. So when Paul writes, "and this is not from yourselves," the pronoun this, neuter, grammatically cannot be pointing back to faith alone. It cannot be pointing back to grace alone either. Greek grammar refuses the match. The pronoun has nowhere to land except on the whole clause. The grace, the faith, the saving, the receiving, the entire event.
Chrysostom saw it in the 4th century. Calvin landed on it. Modern commentators like Honer and Thielman converge on it. The neuter pronoun is not a throwaway. It is Paul closing a door. And the door matters because Greek had other options. Paul could have used haute, the feminine demonstrative, and routed the pronoun straight at pistis, faith specifically. He did not do that. He reached past both feminine candidates and picked the neuter, which has no singular antecedent in the sentence. That is a deliberate move. You do not accidentally pick a pronoun that does not match anything nearby. Here is the door he is closing. If touto pointed back only to grace, you could read the verse this way. The grace part was God's. The faith part was mine. You could keep one small ledger line in your own name. The faith is the one thing you brought. Quiet, humble sounding, yours. The neuter pronoun will not let you keep that ledger line. And then Paul reinforces it. Theou to doron, the gift of God. With the definite article, to, not a gift among gifts, the one gift, singular, covering the whole transaction. There is no room for a second item labeled my faith. That one grammatical move, neuter singular demonstrative plus definite article, is doing pastoral work that English just does not carry. In English, this is the gift of God reads like warm theological decoration. In Greek, it is Paul going around the whole clause and sealing off every crack where merit could try to come back in. I want to tell you why this matters, because the move Paul is stopping is not the loud one. The loud move is the Pharisee boasting about Torah observance on a street corner. Everybody knows that one. Everybody feels righteous about not being that.
The move Paul is stopping is the quiet one. The one that sounds humble. Of course I didn't earn it. I just believed. That sentence, That sentence right there, it sounds like piety. It operates like boasting. It puts one tiny line back on the ledger, one line you keep. And comparison comes back through that one line every time. Because the moment faith is a thing you brought, you can have more of it than someone else. You can have sturdier faith, cleaner faith. The faith you had at 17 versus the faith you have at 40. You can audit it. You can rank. The neuter pronoun dissolves the ledger. All of it. This passage is not about what I was told it was about. I was told it was an evangelism verse, a verse for a tract, a verse to memorize at camp. And it can do that work, but that is not the target. The target is a church that already believed, Christians who had already said yes, and they were, quietly, drifting back to a system where their feelings stabilized their standing, where their consistency earned their seat, where some remaining piece of who they were was holding up the roof. Paul is doing pastoral surgery on believers who are re-domesticating grace, which means the person this verse is cutting toward is not the outsider. It is the longtime believer who has made a private peace with performance. Okay, let me put this on a table you can see. There's a coffee mug I have. It sits on the corner of my desk, left side, closest to the lamp. It has a chip on the handle, the kind of chip that, if you're right-handed, catches the pad of your thumb every single time you lift it. You know within a second of picking it up whether the chip is on your side or the other side, because your thumb finds it without you looking.
I drink from that mug most mornings when I pray, and there's a ritual that's snuck up on me over the years. I pick up the mug, I feel the chip on the handle, and before I start praying, I run this quiet internal scan. How did last night go? How's my attention this morning? Did I miss a day? Am I in a clean stretch or a dim one? And if the scan comes back clean, I pray like I'm allowed in the room. If the scan comes back dim, I pray like I have to earn my way back to the table first. Same mug, same chip, same prayer. Two different postures, driven entirely by what the audit turned up that morning. And the audit is running whether I name it or not. Paul's grammar says the audit is asking the wrong question. Estas sesos menoi, the verb he uses for you have been saved, is a perfect tense. In Greek, the perfect name's a finished past action with continuing present standing. The verdict was rendered. The standing continues. The subject is not the one sustaining it. You are not the one holding up the platform. The platform is holding up you. My thumb keeps finding the chip. The morning scan keeps running. But the grammar is saying that scan is reading something the verdict already settled. The scan is checking weather at an altitude where the weather does not reach. Here is another one. It's Tuesday afternoon, 4 in the winter, the sky going gray behind the kitchen window. And you're looking at your phone at a text you sent a close friend 2 hours ago, and it still says delivered and not read. And that little word at the bottom of the screen, delivered, starts doing real work in your chest. Because 2 hours is just long enough for the mind to start asking whether you said something wrong, whether the silence is the quiet kind or the cold kind, whether the last thing you wrote came out weirder than you meant. And most of us in that stretch start running the scan. Did I push too hard? Was I too much? Did I assume something I shouldn't have? We reread our last 3 messages in the thread. We look for the sentence that might have been the problem. We check to see if it's still delivered a 3rd time, a 4th time. And each check produces the same result and the same small drop in the stomach. That's the texture of the audit.
It runs on messages. It runs on quiet times. It runs on moral slips, on numb stretches, on the week you stopped reading scripture because the whole thing felt flat. Every one of those becomes a small piece of evidence in a court that Paul says has already issued its verdict. The numb week, the bad temper with the person closest to you, the lapse in prayer, those are real. They cost something. The grammar is not saying they don't matter. The grammar is saying they do not move the standing. That's the hardest part to actually hold, because there is a way this teaching turns cheap. It doesn't matter, grace covers it, shrug. The relax, you're fine, shrug. That's not what Paul is doing either. The perfect tense does not make your behavior inert. It makes your behavior not the load-bearing wall of your standing. The obedience is real. The dryness is real. They are fruit being grown or fruit being withered on a tree whose root system you did not plant. You did not plant the tree. You cannot uproot the tree. You are walking around on the tree, eating from the tree. Finding the tree produces less or more depending on the weather, but the tree is not contingent on your watering. I do not fully know what to do with that yet. I notice that when I try to live from it for 10 minutes, my reflex comes back. The reflex is stronger than the grammar. The reflex says, but if you're not watering, you're loafing. The grammar says, the tree was planted before you woke up.
I think most of us know the sentence, "You are saved by grace." I think almost none of us have sat inside the neuter pronoun. Here's the real question the text is asking. When was the last time you quietly gave yourself credit for believing? The grammar already answered.